Hello everyone, this is Jim Duffy of Refining Fire Chilies. Website www.superhotchilies.com, spelled CHILES.com. We sell chili seeds and chili plants, but we love cooking and we love educating people on chilies and cooking with chilies and many other things. So what you're seeing here now is going to be the first of many videos involving food and chilies. So today, for this recipe, for this cooking video, which is going to be the first on my channel, it's going to be my homemade beef stew. Now you can modify this any way you want, and I'll mention some of the modifications as I get it together. Pretty much everything's been prepped, so you don't have to watch me chopping vegetables. I mean, they do that on other cooking videos or other cooking shows. I think most of you know how to use a knife and cut vegetables into smaller pieces or meat into smaller pieces, so I won't bore you with that in my videos. I may show you me slicing some meat when it's done, just to show you the texture of the meat and the juices of the meat. But other than that, you won't be seeing me chopping vegetables and putting things together like that. So let's go over what we're going to put in my stew. And also I want to let y'all know, I say y'all now because I live in Georgia, I want to let y'all know that in the future, these videos will get better. I will have camera set up, or I will have a videographer, I think that's what you call them, or a cameraman, come and film me when I do these videos. But for now, I'm just going to do them with my phone and try to keep one hand free to do the cooking. And hopefully, you'll like what I'm doing and you'll try it out in your own kitchen and enjoy the food. So today is going to be beef stew a la Hotch chili. So we're going to use Hotch chilies for flavoring and for a little bit of spice. So what do we got here to go in there? Of course, we've got some sirloin tip roast. Now I prefer sirloin tip roast or a top round rump roast or top round steak or even London broil. I don't like trimming a lot of fat. My dogs like me to trim a lot of fat because they get to eat the fat. So, but I don't like that. So you'll never see me probably use a chuck roast or some lesser cuts of beef. That doesn't mean that kind of meat is not good for your beef stew. Some of you love cooking with those meats, making pot roast and things like that. You just probably won't see it too much with me. So we've already cut this into chunks. Now, we're going to kind of sear it, or what we call saute it. This is an Instant Pot, which you have settings on it. So we're going to do the saute method first with the meat. What we're going to mix in with the meat is some Worcestershire sauce, hard to pronounce, some chopped minced garlic, which I already buy in a jar, and it's the one in water, not in oil. I also use it in my salsa. 3 spices. We've got some chopped up dried basil, we've got some sage, and we have some rosemary. Then we have some Himalayan pink sea salt. That's what's going to go in with the meat when we do the saute thing. And the saute thing is going to be about 5 to 7 minutes in an Instant Pot. Now, if you don't have an Instant Pot, you can get a big saute or frying pan, and you can stir the meat around with your ingredients in the beginning. Oh, I forgot one more thing is going to go in with the meat for the saute mode. And that is going to be some chopped sweet onion. I like using sweet onions. Why do I like using sweet onions? There's large sweet onions, there's small sweet onions. But generally, I'll use sweet onions. And if the grocery store's out, which most grocery stores that I found now carry them, then I would go with a red onion. But I like sweet onions. Why? Because when you eat them, you get less heartburn. So less burping with that burning sensation when the onions feel like they're in your throat after you eat. If you ate too much especially, less gas or farting, what do you want to call it? So, you know what? I think they have a better flavor. I just love using sweet onions in my salsa and pretty much everything I cook. You probably will never see me use a regular brown onion. You might see me use a red onion in the future, but pretty much it's got to be sweet onions. So I want you to all understand That's going to be an ingredient in a lot of the things I cook with. Unless I maybe use onion flakes or onion powder. I may use those in certain instances. So we got the sweet onion here. So you know what? Less gas. And your wife or your girlfriend or your husband or your boyfriend or your friends will like you better, especially if they stay around for the whole football game. And later on, that food's worked its way through your system. So that's another reason why I like sweet onion. So that's going to go in with the meat when I do the saute mode. Now, if you don't have an Instant Pot, you can get a wok or a large saute pan. The key thing is you're just browning the meat slightly. You're just giving it a few minute cook and mixing it with the initial spices. You're not going to cook it all the way through. You want that meat to be, medium rare or whatever when it goes into the crock pot or into your cooking pot. Now, if you go on a regular cooking pot with a cover, just go slow. Very, very, very low heat. The Instant Pot is a pressure cooker, so pressure cookers will seal in more flavor and more vitamins, and they're faster. So the cook on this is going to be about 22 minutes after we're done with the saute and we put everything else in. Okay? So you got me on that so far? You can use a slow cooking crock pot if you want, but I would saute the meat first with some spices and onion and then put it in the crock pot and then put it on low or whatever you want. But go low and slow, and then your meat usually comes out very tender. Now, just so I keep these videos short and sweet, you won't see me doing a lot of stirring or chopping or things like that, like I said. So I mixed in a tablespoon of rosemary, a tablespoon of ground basil, dried basil, one whole large sweet onion, a couple dashes of Worcestershire sauce, a tablespoon or so of Himalayan Peak sea salt, and a couple of heaping tablespoons of chopped minced garlic. If you like more garlic, add more garlic. If you like less garlic, just go with 1 heaping tablespoon. Cater this to the way you want it to be. So now it's in the pot, and we will saute it for about 7 minutes. And now the meat has been sauteed in the Instant Pot for approximately 7 minutes. So it's just barely cooked. Just barely cooked. It's probably more rare than medium rare. And so I've stirred around all the spices, the onions, and the juices from the meat. But let me mention this. I forgot to mention earlier, and again, this is the first cooking video I'm doing officially for my channel, is that in the bottom of the Instant Pot, I put a couple tablespoons of olive oil, which I also mixed in with the meat. This coats the meat with a little bit of oil and prevents burning. And it also adds a little bit of flavor. I try to use cold-pressed olive oil whenever possible. Okay? So, now we have a few more ingredients to add. We have baby Yukon Gold potatoes, and some are larger than others, so some I might cut up into 6 pieces, and some I might just cut up into 2 or 3 pieces. It really depends. The goal is to get the potatoes small enough so they fit on a large spoon when someone's eating the stew. And then I have some baby carrots, which I've cut in half. So I have a bunch of baby carrots. And over here, we have our Hatch chili blend. Now, this is a blend of mild to medium Hatch chili, New Mex Big Jim, and a little bit of Hatch Lumbre. Hatch Lumbre chili is about 4 times hotter than jalapeno, so there's only a little bit of that in here, okay? But it's very, very flavorful. And we've got approximately a 1/2 to 2/3 of a cup of Hatch chili powder in here. And we're going to mix that in as well. Then, after we get everything in here and mixed, we're going to add some beef stock or beef broth. Doesn't matter what brand you use. You can use Swanson. You can use one of the organic ones. Whatever you want. You can use the low sodium ones if you have health issues that want you to be low sodium. That's why I use sea salt in my cooking. It's less apt to, and I'm not a health professional, it's less apt to cause problems with people who have sodium intake. And the Worcestershire sauce has a little bit of saltiness to it, so that's why I only did about 1 or 2 tablespoons on the meat of the Himalayan sea salt. But the beef stock, I'll pour in until it gets close to the top. So I may use 1 1/2 of these containers. I might only use 1. Okay? So, with that being said, let's get everything in there. There goes our Hatch chili powder blend. Now, for Hatch chili powder, or you could use fresh Hatch chili, if you just type in on the internet, even on probably Amazon, Hatch chili powder, you'll get a list of companies you can buy from. I like to use El Potrero Trading Post. They're out of Chiles, New Mexico, and I know one of the people there, Nick. He's been involved in the chilies of northern New Mexico for a while, and you can actually get sun-dried powder from them. There's other companies that will sell you frozen Hatch chilies, so if you want to mix in frozen Hatch chilies to flavor your beef stew or other cooking, plenty of people online that'll ship you frozen Hatch chilies. They're a little bit more money because they got to ship them in a cooler with some dry ice or regular ice, and that's heavier, so your shipping's going to be almost as much as your frozen chilies. But there's plenty of places to get Hatch chili. A lot of people don't understand that Hatch chilies are not one type of chili. There are all kinds of different chilies grown in New Mexico, in the Hatch Valley. You have the Heritage 6-4, the Sandia, the Big Jim, the Miss Junie, the Lumbre, the Rattlesnake. All are different flavors and all are different heat levels, and all of them have different applications. However, if you use them in powder form or frozen chopped up form, we're not talking about roasting or stuffing. You can just add them to any kind of thing you want, any soup, stew, anything you want to flavor it. So look at it as just being like another garlic or something, but they have rich, savory flavors. They're delicious, and I use them mainly in my cooking. So now I'm going to stir up this mix of vegetables here real quick. So I'll pause the video right now so you don't have to watch me stirring. So now we've added the chopped up baby Yukon gold potatoes. We've added in the Hatch chili powder blend. We've added in the chopped baby carrots. And we've added in the beef broth. And we put enough beef broth in there. It was about 1.5 containers till we got close to the top. We just need to make sure everything's covered good. We don't need to have more broth than that. And we just don't need to. I mean, if I would have used more meat, this would come closer to the top. I used a sirloin tip roast. So now I stirred it all together, mixed it all together with the meat that was previously sauteed. And now we're going to put it on the cooking mode for about 20 to 22 minutes on pressure cook on the Instant Pot. See there, the pressure cook button? We're going to put it on there. Alrighty, and then we'll be back when it's done. Okay, now we're back. We have pressure cooked this for about 22 minutes, the beef stew, okay? The Hatch chili flavored beef stew. And we put it on pressure cook for 22 minutes in the Instant Pot. Now, there's a little release valve on the top of the Instant Pot. If you don't want to wait for it to depressurize for like 25 minutes, slowly depressurize, you can open that valve up, and I'll show you it real quick. Hold on a second. You can open the valve up. I suggest you take like a heavy coffee mug or something with some paper towels in it and put it over it so the steam doesn't go underneath your cabinets. You know, so this way the steam's not blowing all over. And when the steam stops, then you can hit cancel and pull the cover off. Now there's one more step to this beef stew. What I have done is I have taken about, a little more than a half a cup of water, and I've mixed in a couple tablespoons of cornstarch. What this is going to do is give myself a nice thick gravy for the beef stew. Okay? Because right now it's kind of more thin and soupy with the beef broth that was in there. So I'm going to mix in this cornstarch, stir it in really, really good, and then I'm going to put it on saute for a few minutes and then let it rest. And the longer the beef stew sits, the thicker it's going to get. The cornstarch won't be immediate. Now, a few reasons why I'm using cornstarch. You can use flour to thicken a soup or a stew. You can use white flour. The cornstarch is going to be healthier. and it's going to keep your stew or soup gluten-free. Okay? If you use white flour or wheat flour, it's going to be non-gluten-free. Now, if you're on a low-carb diet or a zero-carb diet because of keto or something else, what you can do is instead of you can use less of the gold potatoes. I prefer the gold potatoes or the red potatoes when I make soups and stews and things like that. You can use less potatoes, or you can take the potatoes out and instead of using potatoes, use green beans with your carrots or other vegetables. Okay? So you can do that, and then you'll be close to almost no carbohydrates at all. All right? So let me mix in the starch, the cornstarch, and then we'll show you what we look when we're done. Now, as you can see, the stew is much thicker after adding the cornstarch with some water. It's much thicker. But trust me on this. This stew is this beef stew, this hatch chili beef stew. This is going to thicken up. In a couple more hours, it's going to be really thick. So be careful. You only need to add a size Instant Pot like this. You only need to add a couple of heaping tablespoons of cornstarch. Now, when you mix up the cornstarch in the water, I forgot to mention this earlier. You want to mix it with cold water and mix it up really good so it's all dissolved in the cold water. Then add it to your stew, stir it in really good, and then cover it up and then simmer for a few more minutes. Or like I did, I put it on saute setting. So mix it with cold water. So this is going to thicken up a lot more. And it's just got to sit for a couple hours. And it will be thick. And here it is in the bowl. So people, this is how I make my beef stew. And I can honestly say in California, when I lived there, and here in Georgia, whether it was with my church group or my neighbors or my friends or my family, there's at least probably about 60 to 80 people or more who have tried my beef stew, and no complaints. People loved it. A lot of people said it's better than their wife makes. I'm not saying it's the best in the world, but I will say this. Pretty much everybody enjoyed it. The only people didn't enjoy it were the people who don't like any spice at all. You know, those kind of people that even black pepper's too hot. And I didn't make this really hot. Trust me. So the people who don't like any spice at all, they're mustard ketchup people. That's about as far as they go. They will probably say like it won't be to their liking. Okay. And again, if you want to, you can delete the potatoes or use less potatoes if you want to go low carb, or you could add other vegetables in besides the baby carrots like string beans. And the prep time on this, is about 15 to 20 minutes cutting up the meat and the vegetables and the onions to get them ready. The saute time was 7 minutes. The cook time was 22, and then the saute another 7. So that's 14 and 22. That's 36. So you're looking at a little bit over an hour overall time cooking and everything. And again, if you want to just let it sit for a while and thicken up on your stove and cool down a lot, because it's too hot to eat right now, you can do that. Or you can if you have an Instant Pot or pressure cooker, you can let it depressurize slowly while you're watching TV or doing housework or whatever else you're doing. Take your dog for a walk. You can do that too. There's no rush. But if you want to serve it to your family relatively quick, depressurize it. Be careful when you depressurize it, because when you open up the valve to get the steam out, don't put your hand close to that because you could burn it. And depressurize it. It's going to take about 10 minutes or so. And then stir in your cornstarch if you want it thicker. If you're happy with the stew being thin like a soup, then don't add any cornstarch. And saute it about 7 minutes. Then you kind of got to depressurize it again for another 5. So all in all, it's about an hour, maybe an hour and 10 minutes. It depends how slow you chop up vegetables. And if you want to depressurize it slow, or let it sit after you've turned the heat off, if it's on the stove or the crock pot or the Instant Pot, and let it cool down. So you're looking at a little over an hour to make this. And what I made here, you see the size of this Instant Pot. This is enough probably to feed about 20 people. Now, more than 20 people if you serve it over like white rice. So if like you put a couple scoops of white rice or seasoned rice in a bowl, and then you pour a scoop or two of stew over that, you could probably, with this size Instant Pot, feed 30 people could probably get one bowl each. And children eat less, small children eat less, so you can even feed more of them. All right? And if you don't like heat, then don't add the hatch chilies, or just use a mild hatch chili that has flavor and has almost no heat, just barely spice. Okay? So this is Jim Duffy of Refining Fire Chilies. My website's www.superhotchilies.com. I hope you enjoy this first cooking video. There will be many more. And like I said, in the future, I'll have a professional camera person film me. Some of these will be on my phone in the beginning, but later on, as I get more time and the chili growing gives me a little bit of a break, then I will have somebody film me, or I might buy a nice camera and film all kinds of angles. But again, I probably won't show you me stirring ingredients or chopping up vegetables and meat, because that's just a lot more time, and you already know what that looks like. Okay? So take care, y'all. This is Hatch Chili Beef Stew by Refining Fire Chilies. www.superhotchilies.com. Bye-bye.